in the bustling underbelly of New Terra Station, where the hum of starship engines mingled with the chatter of 1,000 alien tongues, Jake Harlan wiped the grease from his hands and stared at his reflection in a grimy mirror. He was just an ordinary mechanic, fixing hyperdrives and patching hulls for whoever paid the bills. At 32, with a rugged jawline shadowed by stubble and eyes that held the weary spark of someone who'd seen too many close calls in the void, Jake wasn't exactly the type to chase romance. But tonight felt different. A blind date set up through some shady interstellar app that promised connections across the stars. The woman's name was Lyra, and her profile pic showed a stunning figure with flowing white hair, pale skin that seemed to glow like moonlight, and ears that tapered into delicate points, like some ethereal elf from old Earth myths. She wore a sleek, form-fitting outfit that hugged her curves in a way that was both elegant and downright distracting. Jake chuckled to himself as he shrugged into a clean shirt. "What the hell?" he muttered. "Worst case, it's a free meal and a story to tell the guys." Little did he know, across the station in a shadowed docking bay, Lyra paced with the grace of a predator. Daughter of Queen Elara of Zerathia, a hidden empire on the fringes of known space, she was no ordinary woman. Her white hair cascaded like a waterfall of silk, framing a face of exquisite beauty. High cheekbones, luminous violet eyes, and those pointed ears that marked her as one of the Aurelians, a race known for their psychic empathy and unyielding loyalty to their throne. Her body, toned and curvaceous from years of royal training, was clad in a shimmering gown that clung to her like a second skin, its fabric woven from star silk that shifted colors with her mood. But tonight, her mood was all business. The warlord Crazer had stolen the Heartstone, the ancient artifact that powered Zerathia's defenses. Without it, her people faced annihilation. Lyra's mission: infiltrate, recruit a human operative rumored to have unmatched skills in bypassing security systems, and steal back what was hers. The app was her cover, the date her ruse. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, perfect for this. She straightened her posture, her heart pounding not from nerves, but from the thrill of the hunt. "He'll do," she whispered, recalling the profile of this Jake. Strong, clever, and blissfully ignorant of the galaxy's deeper shadows. Jake arrived at the Nebula Lounge early, the kind of place where neon lights danced across metallic walls and holographic menus floated in the air. He ordered a synth beer and scanned the crowd, traders from Orion's Belt, scaly merchants from Dravex, even a few tentacled beings nursing glowing drinks. Then she walked in. Lyra. Gods, she was even more breathtaking in person. Her white hair caught the lights like fresh snow under auroras, and her dress, damn. It was like it was painted on, accentuating every sway of her hips. Those pointed ears twitched slightly as she spotted him, a subtle sign of her alien heritage that only made her more intriguing. Jake stood, offering a lopsided grin. "Lyra, I'm Jake, you look incredible." She smiled, a curve of lips that sent a shiver down his spine, and slid into the seat across from him. Her voice was melodic, with a faint accent that rolled like distant thunder. "Jake, it's a pleasure. I've heard humans are full of surprises." Her eyes locked onto his, probing, as if reading his soul. In truth, she was scanning him psychically, assessing his potential for the mission. Strong mind, quick wits, a body honed by labor. Perfect. They chatted easily at first. Jake shared stories of his life on the station, fixing a freighter that nearly exploded mid-jump, dodging pirate raids in the asteroid fields. Lyra laughed, a sound like chiming crystals, but her mind raced. She needed to steer this toward the recruitment. "Tell me, Jake," she said, leaning forward so her cleavage subtly drew his gaze, "have you ever dreamed of something bigger? Adventures beyond these walls? Stealing a starship from a tyrant, perhaps?" He blinked, chuckling. "Stealing a starship? Sounds like a Hollywood plot. But hey, if it involves a beautiful woman like you, sign me up." He meant it as flirtation, but Lyra's eyes lit up. Humans and their directness, it was endearing, almost arousing in its simplicity. She placed a hand on his, her skin cool and smooth, sending a spark through him. "Then come with me, tonight could change everything." Jake's pulse quickened. Was this moving too fast? But her touch was electric, her scent like exotic flowers from uncharted worlds. He nodded, paying the bill with a swipe of his cred chip. As they left the lounge, weaving through the crowded corridors, he felt a rush of excitement. A date turning into an adventure? Why not? Unbeknownst to him, shadows stirred. Crazer's spies had trailed Lyra from Zerathia. As they turned a corner toward her hidden shuttle, a group of hulking figures emerged, brutish aliens with armored hides and glowing energy blades. "The princess?" One snarled. "Seize her." Lyra's hand tightened on Jake's. "Run," she hissed, but it was too late. The ambush closed in. Jake, acting on instinct from years of station brawls, grabbed a loose pipe from a nearby maintenance panel and swung it like a bat. Crack! It connected with the first attacker's knee, dropping him. What the hell is going on? He yelled, dodging a blade that sizzled the air. Lyra unleashed a burst of psychic energy, a violet wave that stunned two more, but she was outnumbered. One spy lunged at her, blade raised. Jake tackled him midair, wrestling the weapon away with raw strength. "Stay away from her," he growled, his mechanics muscles straining as he pinned the foe and delivered a knockout punch. The remaining attackers fled into the shadows, alarms blaring in the distance. Lyra stared at Jake, breathless, her cheeks flushed. You saved me," without hesitation. Her voice held awe and something deeper, a flicker of genuine attraction. In her culture, such bravery was the mark of a true mate. Jake panted, adrenaline surging. "Who are you really, and what was that about?" She pulled him into the shuttle, sealing the door. "I'm Lyra, daughter of Queen Elara of Zerathia, and you, Jake Harlan, are now part of something greater. We're stealing a starship from a warlord. Welcome to the mission." As the shuttle lifted off, Jake's world spun. A blind date, more like a ticket to destiny. But looking at Lyra, her white hair tousled, her body close in the confined space, he couldn't deny the pull. This was no ordinary night, and he was no ordinary man anymore. The shuttle hummed through the void, stars streaking past like fireflies in a storm. Jake gripped the armrest, his mind reeling from the chaos they'd escaped. Lyra piloted with effortless grace, her pointed ears twitching as she monitored scanners. "Those were Crazer's minions," she explained, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "He's a tyrant who's plagued my people for cycles. The Heartstone he stole, it's not just a gem, it's the lifeblood of Zerathia's shields. Without it, our world falls." Jake rubbed his bruised knuckles, glancing at her. Her dress had torn slightly in the scuffle, revealing more of her pale, flawless skin. He tried not to stare, but damn, she was captivating. "And you thought I'd help steal his ship? Why me? I'm just a grease monkey." Lyra turned, her violet eyes meeting his with intensity. "Humans are legends in our lore, resilient, inventive, passionate. Your profile showed ingenuity and mechanics. But now, after what you did, you're a hero." She reached out, tracing a finger along his jaw, her touch igniting a fire in him. In Zerathian custom, such gestures were invitations, but to Jake, it felt like pure electricity. They docked at a hidden outpost on a rogue asteroid, a neutral ground teeming with smugglers and outcasts. Lyra led him through dimly lit tunnels, her hips swaying hypnotically. "We need supplies," she whispered, "and a way to infiltrate Crazer's fleet." In a shadowy cantina, they huddled in a booth. Lyra ordered exotic drinks that shimmered like liquid stars, and as they sipped, the conversation deepened. She shared tales of Zerathia, floating cities amid nebulae, where love was celebrated with psychic bonds that amplified emotions. "Our males are warriors but rigid," she confessed, her gaze lingering on him. "Humans, you feel so freely." Jake leaned in, emboldened. "And you, what's a princess like you doing slumming it with a human?" Her laugh was soft, seductive. "Perhaps I seek freedom or passion." Her hand found his thigh under the table, a bold move that made his breath hitch. Was this part of the mission, or something real? The air grew thick with tension, her scent enveloping him, sweet, otherworldly, but danger lurked. A spy in the crowd recognized Lyra, signaling reinforcements. As they rose to leave, blasters fired. Jake shoved her behind a bar, grabbing a fallen weapon. "Stay down!" He returned fire, his aim true from old sim training. Lyra joined, her psychic blasts disorienting foes. They escaped to a private chamber Lyra had secured, hearts racing. Alone, the adrenaline morphed into something primal. "You fight like a god," she murmured, pressing against him. Her lips brushed his neck, soft and inviting. Jake's hands roamed her back, feeling the curve of her waist, the heat of her body through the thin fabric. Their kiss was explosive, hungry, exploring. Lyra's ears quivered as she pulled him closer, her alien physiology heightening every sensation. "Jake," she gasped, "show me human desire." He lifted her onto the bed, his calloused hands gentle on her silken skin. As clothes fell away, he marveled at her form, perfect, glowing faintly in the dim light. Their bodies entwined, movements syncopated like a dance across stars. It was more than physical, it was a connection that bridged worlds, her psychic empathy amplifying his pleasure, making every touch echo in waves. Hours later, spent and entwined, Jake whispered, "This mission, it's worth it for you." Lyra smiled, tracing patterns on his chest. "And for us." But in her mind, the Heartstone called. The real adventure was just beginning. As they ventured deeper into enemy territory, the stakes rose. Lyra's shuttle cloaked them as they approached Crazer's armada, a fleet of jagged behemoths orbiting a forsaken moon. The starship we need is his flagship, she said, her voice a mix of determination and lingering warmth from their night. Jake nodded, his body still humming from their intimacy. He'd never felt so alive, so connected. But doubt crept in. What if we fail? We won't, Lyra assured, her hand squeezing his. Her white hair framed her face like a halo, those pointed ears alert to every signal. They infiltrated via a maintenance pod, Jake's skills bypassing locks with ease. Inside the flagship, corridors pulsed with red lights, guards patrolling like shadows. Tension built as they snuck through vents, Lyra's psychic senses guiding them. A close call, a patrol nearly spotting them. Jake pulled her into an alcove, their bodies pressed tight. Quiet, he breathed, but the proximity reignited sparks. Her breath on his neck, the curve of her against him, it was torture and bliss. They reached the vault. The Heartstone glowed, a crystalline orb of power, but alarms blared, trapped. Krazer himself appeared, a hulking brute with cybernetic enhancements. The princess and her pet human, he sneered. The battle erupted. Jake dodged laser fire, using tools as weapons, welding torches to melt armor, wrenches as clubs. Lyra unleashed psychic storms, but Krazer was strong, his fists like hammers. In a thrilling climax, Jake rigged an overload in the ship's systems, causing explosions that rocked the deck. Lyra struck the final blow, her energy wave shattering Krazer's defenses. As he fell, Jake grabbed the Heartstone, pulling Lyra to safety. Escaping in a stolen fighter, the fleet in chaos behind them, Jake whooped, "We did it!" Lyra kissed him fiercely. "You did, my hero." But as Zerathia loomed, a new surprise awaited, something that would test their bond beyond imagination. As the stolen fighter streaked toward Zerathia, the planet's swirling auroras painted the cockpit in ethereal hues of green and purple, like a lover's whispered promise. Jake leaned back in the co-pilot's seat, the Heartstone secure in a shielded compartment beside him, its faint pulse syncing oddly with his heartbeat. Lyra's presence filled the small space, her white hair disheveled from the fight, cascading over her shoulders like threads of starlight. She glanced at him, her violet eyes gleaming with a mix of triumph and something deeper, more primal. The adrenaline from their escape hadn't faded. It lingered in the air between them, thick and electric, turning every shared breath into a silent invitation. "You were magnificent back there," she murmured, her voice a velvet caress that sent shivers down his spine. Her hand rested on the controls, but her gaze lingered on him, tracing the lines of his face, the sweat-dampened shirt clinging to his chest. In the dim glow of the instruments, her pale skin seemed to shimmer, and the torn edges of her gown revealed glimpses of her curves, soft, inviting swells that begged to be explored. Jake felt a stir within him, a heat that had nothing to do with the ship's engines. He shifted closer, his knee brushing hers. "Couldn't let that bastard take you down. Not after everything." His words hung heavy, recalling their night in the outpost, the way her body had arched under his touch, her gasps echoing in his memory like distant thunder. But now, with Zerathia growing larger on the view screen, a shadow of uncertainty crept in. What awaited them on her world? Would her people accept a human like him, or was he just a tool in this galactic game? Lyra sensed his doubt, her psychic empathy weaving through his thoughts like gentle fingers. She turned fully toward him, her pointed ears twitching slightly as she unbuckled her harness. "Jake, my world is beautiful, but it's not without its dangers. The court is a web of alliances and betrayals, but with you, I feel unbreakable." She slid onto his lap, her weight a delicious pressure, her thighs straddling him in the confined seat. The fabric of her gown rode up, exposing the smooth expanse of her legs, and he could feel the warmth of her core pressing against him through his pants. His hands instinctively found her waist, pulling her closer. "Tell me more," he whispered, his breath hot against her neck. "What are we walking into?" But even as he asked, his focus blurred, drawn to the way her breasts rose and fell with each breath, the gown's neckline dipping low enough to tease the edges of her nipples, hardened by the cool cabin air or perhaps by desire. She arched into him, her lips brushing his ear. "The queen, my mother, will demand the Heartstone immediately, but there are whispers of a traitor in the palace, someone who aided Krazer. We must be vigilant." Her words were laced with suspense, each syllable building tension like a coiled spring. Yet her body told a different story, grinding subtly against him, igniting a fire that spread through his veins. "Until then, we have this moment. Let me show you how Zerathians express gratitude." Jake's resolve crumbled under her touch. He captured her mouth in a kiss, deep and demanding, tasting the sweetness of her alien essence, hints of nectar from worlds unknown. Her tongue danced with his, exploratory and eager, while her hands roamed his chest, nails scraping lightly through his shirt. The ship's autopilot hummed steadily, giving them this stolen interlude amid the stars. She broke the kiss, her eyes dark with hunger. "I've never felt this with one of my kind," she confessed, her voice husky. "Humans burn so brightly." With deliberate slowness, she peeled off his shirt, her fingers tracing the scars from old repairs, each one a badge of his resilience. He groaned as she leaned down, her white hair spilling over him like a curtain, her lips trailing fire down his torso. The pointed tips of her ears brushed his skin, sending unexpected jolts of pleasure. The cockpit felt smaller, more intimate, as if the universe had narrowed to just them. Jake's hands slid up her thighs, pushing the gown higher until it bunched around her waist. She wore nothing beneath, her body exposed and glistening in the auroral light. "Lyra," he breathed, his fingers exploring her folds, finding her wet and ready. She moaned, a melodic sound that vibrated through him, her psychic link amplifying the sensation. Every touch echoed, doubled, as if he felt her pleasure alongside his own. She rocked against his hand, her hips undulating in a rhythm that mimicked the ship's gentle sway. "Yes, like that," she encouraged, her voice a sultry whisper. Suspense built not just in their words but in the unspoken. What if they were detected? What if Kraser's remnants pursued? But it only heightened the erotic charge, making every caress feel forbidden, urgent. With a flick of her wrist, she freed him from his pants, her hand wrapping around his length with confident strokes. Jake hissed in pleasure, his head falling back as she positioned herself above him. "I need you now," she said, her eyes locking onto his, violet depths swirling with emotion. Slowly, teasingly, she lowered herself, enveloping him inch by inch. The fit was perfect, her inner walls clenching around him in waves, enhanced by her alien physiology, subtle vibrations that pulsed like a heartbeat. They moved together, a symphony of gasps and sighs filling the cockpit. Jake's hands gripped her hips, guiding her pace while she leaned forward, her breasts pressing against his chest. Her nipples grazed his skin, hard peaks that he captured with his mouth, sucking gently until she cried out. The erotic dance built suspense in layers. Would they reach climax before Zerathia? Would an alert shatter this bliss? As she rode him harder, her white hair whipping with each thrust, Lyra's psychic energy flared, linking their minds in a torrent of shared ecstasy. He felt her building tension, the coil tightening within her, mirroring his own. "Jake, I'm close," she panted, her body trembling. He thrust up to meet her, his fingers digging into her flesh. "Come for me," he urged, the words rough with desire. The release hit them simultaneously, an explosion of sensation that left them shuddering, her cries mingling with his groans. In that moment, the galaxy faded. There was only them, bound by more than flesh, by destiny. But as they caught their breath, the comms panel beeped insistently. Lyra's eyes widened, snapping back to reality. Incoming transmission from the palace. She disentangled herself, smoothing her gown with shaking hands, though the flush on her cheeks betrayed their passion. Jake buckled up, his body still humming. "What is it?" She activated the screen, and Queen Elara's holographic face appeared, regal and stern. "Daughter, you've succeeded. But hurry, the traitor has struck. The shields are failing. Bring the Heartstone, and your human ally, we need him more than you know." The words hung in the air, a new layer of suspense unfolding. What did the Queen mean? As Zerathia's atmosphere enveloped them, Jake glanced at Lyra, her expression a mix of worry and resolve. Their bond had deepened, but the shadows ahead promised trials that could either forge them unbreakable or tear them apart. The landing was smooth, the fighter touching down in a concealed bay amid Zerathia's floating spires, towers of crystalline architecture that defied gravity, suspended in perpetual twilight by anti-grav fields. Lyra led him through hidden passages, her hand in his, still warm from their encounter. The air hummed with energy, scented with blooming night flowers that released pheromones, subtly heightening senses. It was as if the planet itself conspired to keep the erotic tension alive, every brush of wind against skin a reminder of their intimacy. They emerged into the royal chambers, a vast hall adorned with glowing tapestries depicting ancient battles. Queen Elara awaited, her form mirroring Lyra's beauty, but etched with the weight of rule, white hair bound in a crown of living vines, her gown flowing like liquid silver. Guards flanked her, their pointed ears alert, bodies clad in form-fitting armor that accentuated their athletic builds. "Mother," Lyra said, bowing slightly as she presented the Heartstone. The orb pulsed brighter in the palace's light, casting rainbows across the room. Elara's violet eyes, so like her daughter's, flicked to Jake. "And this is the human who aided you." Her tone was appraising, laced with curiosity. "You've chosen well, Lyra, but time is short. The traitor is Visor, my own advisor. He sabotaged the core generators. Without repair, Zerathia crumbles. Jake stepped forward, feeling out of place yet emboldened by Lyra's presence. I can fix it. Mechanics are my thing. Elara nodded. Then go, but beware Visser has allies. Lyra, accompany him. Your bond may be our salvation. As they hurried to the generator vaults, deep beneath the spires, the path wound through labyrinthine corridors lit by bioluminescent fungi. Lyra pressed close to him, her body brushing his with every step. Mother senses our connection, she whispered. In our culture, such unions are rare, potent. The thought stirred him again, but suspense mounted as alarms echoed faintly. They reached the vaults, massive chambers housing thrumming machines that powered the planet's shields. Sparks flew from damaged panels, the air acrid with ozone. Jake dove in, tools in hand, diagnosing the sabotage, fused circuits, rerouted power flows. Lyra assisted, her psychic abilities stabilizing fluctuating energies. But as he worked, her proximity distracted, her scent intoxicating. You're incredible, she said softly, her hand on his back, fingers tracing circles that sent heat pooling low. He turned, pulling her into a quick kiss. Focus, princess, but after this... A sudden clang echoed, ambush. Visser's minions emerged from shadows, sleek assassins with energy whips. The fight was fierce, Jake using his wrench to parry strikes, Lyra's psychic blasts felling foes. One whip grazed her arm, drawing a hiss of pain. Jake roared, tackling the attacker, pummeling him until he lay still. He rushed to her, bandaging the wound with a strip from his shirt. You okay? She nodded, pulling him down for a heated kiss amid the chaos. More than okay. With you, I feel alive. They repaired the generators just as reinforcements arrived, the shield stabilizing. But Visser escaped, vowing revenge over a hacked comm. As they reported back, exhaustion mingled with desire. In a private alcove, Lyra pushed him against the wall, her body molding to his. We have a moment, she breathed, her hands exploring. Their second union was hurried, passionate, her legs wrapping around him as he lifted her, thrusting deep while her moans echoed softly. The erotic release was a balm against the suspense, but as they parted, a messenger arrived. The Queen summons you. There's more to the Heartstone, a prophecy involving a human mate. The revelation hung like a storm cloud, promising erotic depths and suspenseful turns yet to come. Lyra's fingers lingered on his skin as they made their way back to the throne room, the palace's ambient hum vibrating through them like an aftershock of their passion. The corridors seemed narrower now, charged with the unspoken promise of more stolen moments. Jake could still taste her on his lips, feel the ghost of her curves pressing against him. But the weight of the Queen's words pressed in, building a suspense that twisted in his gut. What prophecy? Was he more than just a mechanic caught in the stars? Elara stood before a holographic display, the Heartstone now integrated into the palace's core, its light pulsing steadily. The artifact speaks of a union, she declared, her voice echoing with ancient authority. A human of pure heart, bound to Zerathian blood, to unlock its full power against threats like Krazer. Lyra's hand tightened in Jake's. Mother, are you saying? Yes, Jake must undergo the bonding ritual. It will link your minds permanently, amplifying our defenses, but it's intimate, demanding trust and desire. The words sent a thrill through Jake, erotic imagery flashing, rituals of touch, shared ecstasy. But suspense loomed. What if he failed? What hidden dangers lurked in such a bond? They were led to the ritual chamber, a sanctum of soft lights and silken cushions, scented with aphrodisiac mists. Lyra undressed slowly, her gown pooling at her feet, revealing her naked form in all its glory, pale skin glowing, curves inviting, pointed ears quivering with anticipation. Are you ready? She asked, her voice a seductive purr. Jake stripped, his body responding instantly. For you, always. They lay together on the central dais, the Heartstone hovering above, its energy weaving around them. The ritual began with touches, her fingers tracing his length, stroking until he hardened fully. He reciprocated, his mouth on her breasts, tongue circling her nipples while his hand delved between her thighs, fingers curling inside her wetness. Moans filled the chamber as they built toward union, the mists heightening every sensation. When he entered her, the bond ignited, psychic threads linking their souls, her pleasure crashing into his like waves. They moved as one, thrusts deep and rhythmic, building to a crescendo that shattered boundaries. But midway a vision intruded, Visser's face, laughing, revealing he held a shard of the Heartstone. The suspense spiked, but they pushed through, climaxing in a blaze of light that sealed the bond. Empowered, yet aware of the traitor's threat, they emerged changed. Lyra's eyes shone with love. We're one now. Yet the erotic bliss masked the growing storm. Visser's counterattack was coming, and their bond would be tested in fire. The night deepened on Zerathia, the auroras casting dancing shadows through the chamber's translucent walls. Jake and Lyra lay entwined on the cushions, their bodies slick with sweat, the afterglow of the ritual humming between them like a living current. The bond pulsed gently, allowing him to feel echoes of her emotions, satisfaction, affection, and an undercurrent of worry that mirrored his own. Vizor's vision during the climax wasn't just a hallucination, it was a warning, a psychic bleed from the Heartstone's power. "We can't ignore it," Jake said softly, his fingers idly tracing the curve of her hip. Her skin was impossibly soft, warmer now from their exertions, and he marveled at how naturally they fit together, human and alien, mechanic and princess. Lyra propped herself on an elbow, her white hair falling like a veil over one breast. "Vizor has a fragment. It means he can disrupt our shields again. We must hunt him." Her voice was resolute, but her eyes held a spark of desire as she leaned in, lips brushing his. The kiss started tender but deepened, her tongue teasing his, reigniting the fire. Before they could lose themselves again, a soft chime announced a visitor. Elara entered, her presence commanding yet approving as she noted their closeness. "The bond is strong. Good. Scouts report Vizor's lair on the moon of Thalor. Prepare for departure at dawn." As the queen left, Lyra turned to Jake, her body pressing against his once more. "One more night?" she whispered, her hand sliding down his abdomen to grasp him firmly. He groaned, hardening under her touch. Their lovemaking this time was slower, exploratory, her on top, rolling her hips in languid circles, drawing out the pleasure. The suspense of the coming mission added an edge, making every thrust feel like a defiance against fate. Dawn came too soon. The ship prepped for the hunt. As they launched, the erotic memories fueled their resolve, but Vizor's shadow loomed larger, promising a confrontation that would demand everything. The sleek Zerathian cruiser sliced through the void toward Thalor, a jagged moon cloaked in crimson mist, its surface scarred by ancient wars. Jake sat in the co-pilot's seat, his hands steady on the auxiliary controls, though his mind was far from calm. The afterglow of their night together lingered, Lyra's scent still clinging to his skin, her taste a vivid memory on his lips. The psychic bond they'd forged pulsed softly, a constant thread linking their emotions, her determination a bright flame, his own resolve tempered by the thrill of the unknown. Vizor's shadow loomed ahead, a traitor who held a shard of the Heartstone, threatening Zerathia's survival. As the moon's glow filled the viewscreen, Jake felt the weight of destiny pressing in, a dramatic crescendo building with every passing second. Lyra stood beside him, her white hair tied back in a warrior's braid, accentuating the delicate points of her ears. Her form-fitting combat suit hugged her curves, a stark contrast to the flowing gown of their first meeting, yet no less captivating. She glanced at him, her violet eyes sharp with focus but softened by a flicker of warmth. "Thalor is a maze of ruins," she said, her voice low, carrying the weight of their mission. "Vizor's hidden his lair well. Our bond will guide us, but we must be ready for anything." Her hand brushed his shoulder, a fleeting touch that sent a spark through their psychic link, reigniting the heat of their intimacy. Jake nodded, his jaw tight. "I'm no stranger to tight spots. Just point me at the problem." His words were confident, but inside, curiosity gnawed at him. What was Vizor planning? And why had the Heartstone's vision shown him laughing? As if he held a secret that could unravel everything. The cruiser descended through Thalor's atmosphere, turbulence shaking the hull as crimson storms swirled outside. Lyra's fingers danced across the controls, her movements precise, almost sensual, as she navigated the treacherous descent. The ship touched down in a canyon of jagged obsidian spires, their edges glinting like knives under the moon's eerie light. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into a world of oppressive silence, broken only by the distant howl of wind through the ruins. The suspense was palpable, each shadow a potential threat, each gust a whisper of betrayal. Lyra led the way, her psychic senses scanning for Vizor's presence. Jake followed, a blaster slung at his hip, his mechanic's instincts alert for traps. The bond thrummed between them, amplifying their awareness, her heightened senses blending with his street-smart intuition. They moved through crumbling temples, their walls etched with glyphs that pulsed faintly, as if alive. "These ruins predate Zerathia," Lyra whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "They hold secrets even my people don't fully understand." As they ventured deeper, the air grew thick with static, the Heartstone shard's energy interfering with their bond. Jake felt a sudden chill, a spike of unease that wasn't his own. Lyra froze, her ears twitching. "He's close," she hissed, drawing a sleek energy blade from her belt. Before Jake could respond, the ground trembled, and a section of the temple wall exploded inward, showering them with debris. From the dust emerged Vizor's forces. Cybernetic warriors, their bodies a grotesque fusion of metal and flesh, eyes glowing with malevolent red light. At their center stood Vizor himself, a towering figure clad in black armor, his face a mask of scars and implants. In his hand, the Heartstone shard pulsed like a dying star, its light casting twisted shadows. "Princess," he sneered, his voice a mechanical growl, "you've brought your pet human to his doom." The battle erupted in a whirlwind of chaos, a thrilling clash that shook the ancient stones. Jake dove behind a pillar, returning fire with his blaster, each shot precise from years of makeshift target practice in New Terra's scrapyards. Lyra fought like a tempest, her blade slicing through enemies with graceful ferocity, her psychic bursts shattering their circuits. But Vizor was a force unto himself, wielding the shard to unleash waves of disruptive energy that scrambled their bond, making Lyra wince as psychic feedback burned through her. "Jake, the shard!" she shouted, dodging a blast that scorched the ground. "It's amplifying his power." He didn't hesitate. Sprinting through the chaos, he tackled a cyborg, wrenching its weapon free, a plasma whip that crackled in his hands. With a roar, he lashed out at Vizor, the whip wrapping around the traitor's arm. Vizor snarled, yanking Jake forward, but Jake used the momentum, slamming a fist into Vizor's faceplate. Cracking it, the dramatic intensity peaked as they grappled, the shard's glow flaring wildly. Then, a surprising twist, Vizor laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the ruins. "You think this is about power?" he taunted, raising the shard. "This is but a key to something greater." With a gesture, he activated a hidden mechanism, and the temple floor parted, revealing a massive, pulsating device below, a machine of alien origin, its surface crawling with energy that screamed of forbidden technology. The Heartstone shard slotted into it, and the machine roared to life, sending tremors through the moon. Lyra's eyes widened, her psychic senses overwhelmed. "It's a rift generator," she gasped. "He's trying to open a portal to the void, a realm of pure destruction." Jake's heart pounded, the stakes soaring. The machine's hum grew deafening, reality itself seeming to warp. He dove for the shard, but Vizor anticipated, slamming him against a wall with unnatural strength. Pain exploded in Jake's ribs, but the bond with Lyra surged, her strength flowing into him. He staggered up, fueled by her resolve, and lunged again, this time prying the shard free with a desperate wrench. The machine faltered, but Vizor wasn't done. He unleashed a final attack, a beam of dark energy that Lyra countered with a psychic shield, her body trembling under the strain. Jake saw his chance, sliding under Vizor's guard and jamming the shard into a damaged panel of the machine. Sparks flew, and the device screeched, collapsing in a shower of molten metal. Vizor roared in fury, retreating into the shadows as the temple began to crumble. Jake grabbed Lyra, pulling her toward the exit as stones fell around them. They burst into the canyon just as the ruins imploded, a cloud of dust rising into Thalor's sky. The cruiser waited, their escape a heartbeat away, but the thrill of survival was laced with curiosity. What was the void, and why was Vizor so desperate to unleash it? In the cockpit, Lyra collapsed against Jake, her breath ragged, her combat suit torn to reveal glimpses of her pale skin, now streaked with dust. "You were incredible," she whispered, her hand cupping his face. The bond flared, their emotions raw fear, triumph, and a desperate need to feel alive. She kissed him fiercely, lips hungry as if anchoring herself to him amid the chaos. He returned it, hands roaming her back, the adrenaline transforming into something primal. But as they lifted off, the Heartstone shard in Jake's pocket pulsed erratically, and a faint voice echoed in their bond, not Vizor's, but something older, colder. "The void calls," it whispered, sending a chill through them both. The climax had passed, but the mystery deepened, promising surprises that would test their bond to its limits. Back on Zerathia, the palace awaited, but so did questions. What was the machine's true purpose? And how did a human mechanic fit into a prophecy older than the stars? Lyra's fingers intertwined with his, her warmth a promise against the gathering storm. They'd survived, but the true battle was only beginning, its dramatic weight pulling them toward an uncertain fate. The cruiser's engines purred as it glided back toward Zerathia, the crimson haze of Thalor fading into the starry void behind them. Jake leaned back, the Heartstone shard heavy in his pocket, its erratic pulses syncing with the faint unease in his gut. Lyra's kiss still burned on his lips, her warmth lingering where their hands remained entwined, her pale fingers interlaced with his calloused ones. The psychic bond between them thrummed softly, carrying echoes of her relief and his own adrenaline-fueled exhilaration, but that chilling whisper from the shard, "The void calls," hung like a specter over their victory. As Zerathia's auroras came into view, painting the cockpit in shimmering greens and purples, Jake felt the drama of their situation deepen, a tightening coil of fate that promised more than just a hero's welcome. Lyra adjusted the controls, her combat suit still torn from the battle, revealing tantalizing glimpses of her smooth, moonlit skin. Her white hair, loosened from its braid, framed her face like a halo, and her pointed ears twitched as she glanced at him. "We've struck a blow against Visor," she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "But that machine on Thalor, it's no ordinary weapon. The Void is a myth to most, a realm of chaos that even my people fear. If Visor seeks it, we're not safe yet." Her violet eyes met his, and through their bond, he felt her resolve and a flicker of something softer, a need to anchor herself to him amidst the storm. Jake squeezed her hand, trying to lighten the mood. "So, no pressure then? Just another day saving the galaxy with my favorite alien princess." He flashed a grin, hoping to ease the tension, but his heart raced. The shard's whisper wasn't just a threat, it was a puzzle, and he was no scholar, just a mechanic caught in a cosmic drama that felt bigger than both of them. Lyra's lips curved into a half-smile, her ears twitching with amusement. "Favorite, am I? Careful, human, or I'll hold you to that." She leaned closer, her breath warm against his cheek, sending a jolt through him. The bond amplified it, her playful tease mingling with a pulse of desire that made his pulse quicken. But before he could respond, the comms panel blared, shattering the moment with a formal tone. "Princess Lyra, the Queen requests your immediate presence in the High Council chamber. Bring the human." The sudden summons felt like a splash of cold water, and Jake's grin faltered. "Guess the date's over," he muttered, half joking, but the awkwardness of facing Lyra's mother, Queen Elara, after their intimate encounters made his stomach twist. Lyra chuckled, a melodic sound that eased his nerves and nudged him. "Don't worry, Jake, Mother respects strength, and you've got that in spades." Her fingers brushed his thigh, a teasing promise that kept the heat simmering despite the looming drama. They landed in the palace's central spire, its crystalline walls refracting Zerathia's auroras into dazzling rainbows. As they stepped into the High Council chamber, Jake felt like a fish out of water. The room was a spectacle, towering columns of living crystal, holographic maps of the galaxy swirling overhead, and a dozen Zerathian nobles in shimmering robes, their pointed ears and luminous eyes fixed on him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Queen Elara sat at the head, her silver gown flowing like liquid starlight, her presence commanding yet tinged with warmth as she regarded her daughter and the human beside her. "Lyra, Jake," Elara began, her voice resonating with authority. "The Heartstone shard you retrieved is a fragment of our salvation, but Visor's escape and his void machine threaten us all. The prophecy speaks of a human mate unlocking the Heartstone's full power, but the Council doubts a mechanic can fulfill such a role." Her gaze softened on Jake, but the noble's murmurs carried a sting of disdain. Jake shifted uncomfortably, his workman's boots scuffing the polished floor. "No offense, Your Majesty, but I'm not here to play cosmic savior. I just want to help Lyra." His bluntness drew gasps from the nobles, and he instantly regretted it, feeling like he'd just tripped over a diplomatic landmine. Lyra stifled a laugh, her hand brushing his arm in reassurance, but the bond carried her amusement, making his cheeks burn. Elara raised a hand, silencing the room. "Your courage on Thalor speaks louder than titles, Jake Harlan, but the ritual bond you share with Lyra must be tested publicly, a trial of unity to prove your worth to the court." The words landed like a thunderclap, heightening the drama. A public trial? Jake's mind raced, picturing some gladiatorial spectacle or worse, a psychic interrogation. Lyra stepped forward, her voice firm. "Mother, he's already proven himself. He saved me, saved the shard." Her defense warmed Jake's heart, but the noble's skeptical glances told him this wasn't negotiable. The awkwardness peaked as a counselor, a stern-faced Zerathian named Tharian with a sneer that could curdle synth milk, spoke up. "A human bonded to our princess? Absurd. Let's see if he can handle our customs without tripping over his own primitive instincts." The room tittered and Jake's jaw clenched. Primitive? He'd show them. Elara's eyes twinkled with a hint of mischief, as if she sensed the brewing chaos. "The trial begins tonight at the Feast of Stars. Prepare yourselves." She dismissed them with a wave, leaving Jake and Lyra to navigate the palace's labyrinthine halls, the weight of the trial pressing down. As they walked, Lyra pulled him into a secluded alcove, her body close enough to feel her warmth through the combat suit. "Don't let them rattle you," she whispered, her lips grazing his ear, sending a shiver down his spine. "The trial is part performance, part challenge. We'll face it together." Her fingers traced his chest, teasing the edge of his shirt, and the bond flared with her confidence and a spark of desire that made his knees weak. Performance. Jake raised an eyebrow, trying to mask his nerves with humor. What, like dancing? Because I've got 2 left feet and a wrench for rhythm. His self-deprecating grin drew a laugh from her, bright and genuine, but the drama of the situation lingered. What kind of trial required a public display, and how would their bond hold up under scrutiny? They reached their chambers, a luxurious suite with a view of Zerathia's floating spires. Lyra shed her combat suit, revealing a silken robe that clung to her curves, her white hair cascading freely. "Relax, Jake," she purred, pouring 2 glasses of a glowing Zerathian wine. "The feast is a spectacle, food, music, and displays of unity." Her tone hinted at something more, her eyes glinting with mischief. He took a sip, the wine sweet and heady, loosening his tension. "Displays, huh? Sounds like we're putting on a show. Any tips for a guy who's more comfortable with engines than alien etiquette?" She smirked, setting her glass down and straddling his lap, her robe parting to reveal the smooth expanse of her thighs. "Just be you, authentic, passionate." Her lips brushed his, a teasing kiss that deepened quickly, her tongue exploring with a hunger that reignited their bond's fire. Jake's hands roamed her back, pulling her closer, but a loud knock interrupted, making them both jump. A palace attendant stood at the door, holding ornate garments. "For the feast, human. Wear these or risk further embarrassment." The attendant's tone dripped with disdain, and Jake groaned as he saw the outfit, a tight, shimmering tunic and pants that looked like they'd been designed to show off every muscle. "Great," he muttered. "I'm gonna look like a space peacock." Lyra laughed, her eyes dancing. "You'll look irresistible." She helped him dress, her fingers lingering as she adjusted the fabric, turning the awkward moment into something intimate. But as they prepared, the bond carried a flicker of her unease. Vizor's shard was still out there, and the trial could expose weaknesses in their connection. The Feast of Stars began in a grand hall, filled with Zerathians in dazzling attire, their pointed ears adorned with glowing jewels. Tables groaned under exotic dishes, luminous fruits, writhing delicacies that Jake eyed warily. The trial's first challenge was announced. A dance, symbolizing unity, performed before the court. Jake's heart sank. Dancing, he was doomed. Lyra took his hand, leading him to the center of the hall as music swelled, a haunting melody of strings and psychic resonances. "Follow my lead," she whispered, her body swaying against his, guiding his clumsy steps. The bond helped, her grace flowing into him, but when he tripped slightly, stepping on her foot, the nobles chuckled. Jake flushed but leaned into the humor, spinning Lyra dramatically and dipping her low, earning a surprised laugh from her and scattered applause. The drama heightened as Tharian, the sneering counselor, interrupted. "A dance is no proof. Let the human face the psychic gauntlet." The crowd murmured and Jake's stomach dropped. "A what?" Lyra's grip tightened, her eyes blazing. "He's ready," she declared, but the bond carried her fear. Failure could weaken their bond, leaving Zerathia vulnerable. As they were led to a glowing platform, surrounded by orbs pulsing with psychic energy, Jake whispered, "Any chance this gauntlet involves fixing a hyperdrive?" Lyra's laugh was strained but warm, her hand squeezing his. "Just hold on to me, Jake, we'll face it together." The orbs flared and a surge of psychic pressure hit, testing their bond's strength. Images flashed, Vizor's face, the void's darkness, their own intimate moments exposed to the court. Jake gritted his teeth, clinging to Lyra's presence through the bond, their connection a lifeline amid the chaos. The drama was unrelenting, the awkwardness of their public scrutiny mingling with the thrill of their defiance, setting the stage for a trial that would either cement their legend or break them apart. The psychic gauntlet's glow faded, leaving Jake and Lyra standing on the platform, breathless but unbroken. The orbs pulsed softly, their energy retreating as the Zerathian nobles watched in stunned silence. Through their bond, Jake felt Lyra's pride surging alongside his own relief, their connection holding firm against the invasive scrutiny of the court. Her hand remained in his, her fingers warm and steady, though her violet eyes betrayed a flicker of exhaustion. The Feast of Stars continued around them, music swelling and luminous dishes shimmering under the auroral light, but the air crackled with unspoken tension. Tharian's scowl lingered from the shadows, his challenge rebuffed but his suspicions far from quelled. The trial had proven their bond's strength, but Jake sensed the drama was far from over. Vizor's shadow and the void's whisper still loomed, and the Heartstone shard in his pocket seemed to pulse with secrets yet untold. Lyra tugged him gently toward the hall's edge, away from the noble's prying eyes. "You were incredible," she whispered, her voice a sultry melody that stirred warmth in his chest. Her combat suit, still torn from Thalor, clung to her curves and her white hair spilled over her shoulders, catching the light like spun starlight. The bond thrummed with her emotions, admiration, gratitude, and a growing heat that made his pulse quicken. "We need a moment to ourselves," she added, her pointed ears twitching with a playful edge. "The court can wait." Jake grinned, the weight of the trial easing under her gaze. "Lead the way, princess. I'm not saying no to that." His attempt at humor masked the nervous thrill building inside him. The public dance, the psychic onslaught, it had all been a whirlwind, but her presence grounded him, even as it set his senses ablaze. She guided him through a side passage, her hips swaying with a deliberate grace that made it hard to focus on anything else. The corridor led to a private chamber, its walls draped in silken tapestries that glowed faintly, reflecting Zerathia's auroras. A wide, cushioned platform dominated the room, draped in shimmering fabrics that invited touch. The air was scented with night blooms, their pheromones weaving a subtle spell, heightening every sensation. Lyra closed the door, sealing them in a world of their own, and turned to him, her eyes dark with intent. "The trial tested our minds," she murmured, stepping closer, her body brushing his. "Now let's test our hearts." Jake's breath caught as she pressed against him, her curves molding to his frame. The bond amplified her desire, a warm current that flowed into him, stirring and answering hunger. "You sure we've got time for this?" he teased, his hands settling on her waist, fingers tracing the edge of her suit where it hugged her hips. "What if Tharian sends another gauntlet?" Her laugh was low, almost a purr, as she tilted her head, her lips grazing his jaw. "Let him try. Right now, it's just us." She tugged at his tunic, the shimmering fabric from the feast sliding off to reveal his toned chest, scarred from years of hard work. Her fingers explored the marks, her touch light but deliberate, sending shivers through him. "Humans wear their stories on their skin," she said softly, her voice laced with admiration. "I want to read everyone." He pulled her closer, capturing her lips in a kiss that started soft but deepened quickly, hungry and searching. Her tongue danced with his, tasting of sweet wine and something uniquely her, exotic, intoxicating. The bond pulsed, their emotions intertwining, making every touch feel like a shared pulse. She guided his hands to the clasps of her suit, and he undid them with practiced ease, the fabric parting to reveal her pale, flawless skin. Her breasts, full and soft, pressed against him as the suit fell away, her nipples hardening under the cool air and his gaze. "Gods, you're beautiful," Jake whispered, his voice rough with awe. He trailed kisses down her neck, savoring the way her pointed ears quivered when his lips brushed their tips, a sensitive spot that drew a soft moan from her. Her hands roamed his back, nails grazing lightly, urging him on. The chamber's ambience, the soft glow, the floral scent, wrapped them in a cocoon, amplifying the intimacy. Lyra pushed him gently onto the cushioned platform, her movements graceful yet commanding. She straddled him, her white hair cascading like a curtain, framing her face as she leaned down to kiss him again. The bond carried her pleasure, a feedback loop that heightened his own arousal. Her hands worked at his pants, freeing him with a deft touch, and he groaned as her fingers wrapped around his length, stroking slowly, teasingly. "Zerathians bond through touch," she murmured, her eyes locked on his. "Let me show you." She guided him to her core, already slick with desire, and lowered herself slowly, enveloping him in a warmth that felt like coming home. The bond flared, their sensations merging, her tightness, his fullness, a shared rhythm that built with every movement. Jake's hands gripped her hips, guiding her as she rocked against him, her moans soft but rising, a melody that echoed in the chamber. Her breasts swayed with each thrust, and he couldn't resist, leaning up to take a nipple into his mouth, sucking gently until she gasped, her fingers tangling in his hair. The pace quickened, their bodies moving in sync, driven by instinct and the bond's amplification. Lyra's ears twitched wildly, her psychic energy weaving around them, making every touch electric. "Jake," she breathed, her voice trembling with need, "I feel you everywhere." The words pushed him closer to the edge, the intimacy of their connection overwhelming. He thrust up to meet her, deeper, harder, their rhythm a dance of passion that drowned out the galaxy's threats. As they neared climax, the Heartstone shard in Jake's discarded pants pulsed faintly, unnoticed in the heat of the moment. Their release hit like a supernova, her cries mingling with his groans, the bond flooding them with shared ecstasy. She collapsed against him, her body trembling, her white hair fanning across his chest. They lay there, panting, wrapped in each other's warmth, the afterglow a quiet sanctuary amidst Zerathia's chaos. But the moment was fleeting. A soft chime from the chamber's comms panel broke the silence, and Lyra tensed, her ears twitching alertly. She slid off him, pulling a silken sheet around her and activated the panel. A hologram of Queen Elara appeared, her expression grave. Lyra, Jake, the Council has detected a disturbance in the Heartstone's energy. Vizor's shard is active, somewhere on Zerathia. Find it before he strikes. Jake sat up, his body still humming from their union, but the drama surged back, sharp and urgent. "He's here?" he asked, pulling on his clothes, the shard's weight in his pocket suddenly heavier. Lyra's eyes met his, her resolve mirroring his own, but the bond carried a new layer of tension. Vizor's presence was no longer a distant threat but a blade at their throats. She dressed quickly, her combat suit sliding back on like armor, though her flushed cheeks and tousled hair betrayed their recent intimacy. "We'll find him," she said, her voice firm but softened by a glance at Jake. "Together." He nodded, the memory of her body against his fueling his determination. "Let's end this." But as they stepped into the corridor, the shard's pulse quickened, and a faint, mocking laugh echoed through their bond, Vizor's voice, taunting them from the shadows. The intimacy of their moment had fortified them, but the hunt for the traitor promised a confrontation that would test their bond in ways neither could predict. They moved toward the palace's lower levels, where the Heartstone's core resided, the air growing colder, heavier with the weight of secrets. Lyra's hand found his, a silent promise that they'd face whatever came next. The drama of their mission, woven with the lingering heat of their passion, propelled them forward, into a storm that was as much about their hearts as it was about the fate of Zerathia. The palace's lower levels were a labyrinth of crystalline tunnels, their walls pulsing with the faint glow of Zerathia's core energy, a heartbeat that seemed to echo the urgency in Jake's chest. He and Lyra moved swiftly, her hand still clasped in his, the warmth of their recent intimacy lingering like a shield against the cold dread seeping from the Heartstone shard in his pocket. Its erratic pulses had grown stronger, syncing with the mocking laugh they'd heard through their bond, Vizor's voice, a venomous thread weaving through their connection. Lyra's white hair swayed as she led the way, her combat suit accentuating every curve, her pointed ears twitching with alertness. The bond thrummed between them, a mix of her steely resolve and his own stubborn determination, but the air felt charged with something darker, a tension that promised a storm far greater than they'd anticipated. "Vizor's close," Lyra whispered, her violet eyes scanning the shadows. "The shard's reacting to the core, he's trying to destabilize it." Her voice carried the weight of their mission, but the bond let Jake feel the undercurrent of her fear, not for herself, but for him, for what this fight might cost them. He squeezed her hand, grounding her as much as himself. "We've got this," he said, his voice steady despite the shard's whispers clawing at his mind. "No traitors taking you down on my watch." Her lips curved in a faint smile, but before she could respond, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, the Heartstone's sanctum. The core itself hovered at the center, a massive orb of radiant crystal, its light bathing the room in a kaleidoscope of colors. But the beauty was marred by chaos. Panels sparked, energy conduits flickered, and at the far end stood Vizor, his black armor gleaming, the stolen shard in his hand glowing like a malevolent star. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood a figure cloaked in shadow, their presence sending a chill through the bond, a presence that felt wrong, alien in a way even Lyra's kind wasn't. "Princess?" Vizor sneered, his voice a mechanical rasp. "You've brought your human to the endgame, pity." He raised the shard, and the core trembled, its light dimming as arcs of dark energy lashed out, cracking the chamber's walls. Jake's instincts kicked in, pulling Lyra behind a console as a bolt singed the air where they'd stood. "We need to stop him now," Lyra hissed, her energy blade igniting with a hum. But Jake's eyes were on the cloaked figure, something about them tugging at his senses. The bond flared with Lyra's confusion, she didn't recognize them either. The suspense thickened, every second a heartbeat closer to catastrophe. Jake grabbed a fallen tool, a plasma cutter, and darted forward, using the chamber's machinery for cover. Vizor laughed, unleashing a wave of dark energy that forced Jake to dive, the cutter skittering across the floor. Lyra countered with a psychic blast, her violet light clashing with Vizor's darkness, the impact shaking the sanctum. "Jake, the shard!" she shouted, her voice strained as she held the barrier. He scrambled toward Vizor, dodging energy lashes that burned the air. The cloaked figure moved then, swift and silent, intercepting him with a blade of pure shadow. Jake parried with a pipe wrench, the clash sparking in the dim light. Up close, the figure's hood fell back, revealing a face that stopped him cold, a human face but wrong, eyes glowing with the same red as Vizor's cyborgs, skin pale and veined with circuits. "You!" Jake gasped, the twist hitting like a gut punch. It was Milo, a mechanic from New Terra Station, a guy he'd shared beers with years ago, now transformed into something monstrous. Milo, what the hell? Jake dodged another strike, his mind reeling. Milo had vanished after a freighter job gone wrong, presumed dead. Now he was here, allied with Visor, his humanity stripped away. No Milo anymore, the figure rasped, voice distorted. The void remade me. It'll remake you too, Jake. The words were a shock, a powerful twist that upended everything. The void wasn't just a place. It was alive, sentient, and it had turned his old friend into a puppet. The bond surged with Lyra's horror, amplifying Jake's own as he realized the stakes. Visor wasn't just after power. He was serving something far worse. Lyra fought her way to Jake's side, her blade clashing with Visor's. The void's corrupted him, she shouted, her psychic senses confirming the truth. The shard's a conduit, it's letting the void in. Her words were cut off as Visor struck, his shard-powered blow shattering her barrier. She staggered, blood trickling from a cut on her arm, and Jake's rage ignited. He tackled Milo, using his weight to pin him, wrenching the shadow blade free. "You're not taking her," he roared, slamming Milo's head against the floor. The cyborg's eyes flickered, a moment of humanity breaking through. "Jake, run," Milo whispered before collapsing, his circuits sparking out. Visor roared, raising the shard to unleash a final wave, but Jake was faster. He grabbed the plasma cutter, diving for the core's control panel. With a desperate slash, he severed the conduit feeding Visor's shard, the dark energy collapsing in a scream of static. The core flared back to life, its light overwhelming, and Visor stumbled, the shard falling from his grasp. Lyra seized it, her psychic energy stabilizing the core, but the chamber shook violently, cracks spiderwebbing the walls. "The void's pulling back," she cried, her voice triumphant yet strained. Jake grabbed her, pulling her toward the exit as the sanctum began to collapse, Milo's body lost in the debris. They stumbled into the tunnel, the core's light stabilizing behind them, but the bond carried a new weight, Milo's betrayal, the void's sentience. As they caught their breath, Lyra pressed against Jake, her body trembling not just from exertion but from the revelation. "The void, it's not just a place," she whispered, her lips brushing his ear, her warmth a desperate anchor. "It's alive and it wants you." Jake's heart pounded, the twist reshaping their mission. He pulled her closer, kissing her fiercely, a defiant claim against the darkness. "Let it try," growled, the bond flaring with their shared resolve. But as they hurried back to the palace, the shard in Lyra's hand pulsed once more, and a faint image flickered in their minds, not Visor, but a vast, formless entity, its eyes fixed on Jake. The surprise of Milo's transformation and the void's true nature left them reeling, but the fight wasn't over. Visor had escaped again, and the palace awaited with answers and dangers. Lyra's hand tightened in his, her white hair tangled, her combat suit torn, yet her beauty undimmed. "We face it together," she said, her voice a promise. They emerged into the palace's upper levels, the auroras casting their glow through crystalline walls. Queen Elara met them, her face pale. "The core is stable, but the void's presence lingers. Jake, the prophecy names you not just as Lyra's mate, but as the void's target." Her words were a new shock, deepening the mystery. Why him? A mechanic, a nobody, now the key to a cosmic war. The bond pulsed with Lyra's fear and love, grounding him as the weight of destiny pressed in. The palace hummed with activity guards mobilizing, nobles whispering, but Jake's focus was on her, her violet eyes a beacon in the storm. They'd survived the sanctum, but the void's gaze promised a battle that would test their bond to its core, a twist that left the galaxy's fate hanging in the balance. The crystalline halls of Zerathia's palace shimmered with auroral light, but the air felt heavy, charged with the weight of Queen Elara's revelation. Jake's boots echoed on the polished floor as he and Lyra hurried toward the war chamber, her hand still gripping his, their psychic bond pulsing with a mix of her fierce determination and his own churning unease. The void's gaze, those formless, hungry eyes he'd glimpsed in their shared vision, lingered in his mind, a cosmic predator that had marked him, a mere human mechanic as its target. Lyra's white hair swayed with each step, her torn combat suit clinging to her curves, a reminder of their battles and stolen moments of passion. Her violet eyes flicked to him, carrying a silent promise through their bond. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. But as they approached the chamber's towering doors, the drama of their situation swelled, a storm of destiny threatening to sweep them away. Inside, the war chamber buzzed with activity, holographic star maps spun above a circular table. Zerathian generals in sleek armor argued over strategy, and the Heartstone shard, now secured in a containment field, pulsed faintly in the corner. Queen Elara stood at the head, her silver gown flowing like a river of starlight, her pointed ears alert as she addressed the council. Visor's alliance with the Void threatens not just Zerathia, but the galaxy, she declared, her voice cutting through the clamor. Jake, your role in the prophecy is undeniable. The void seeks you, but your bond with Lyra may be our shield. Jake shifted uncomfortably, feeling the weight of every gaze, some curious, others skeptical. Tharian, the sneering counselor, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. A human chosen by prophecy? Preposterous. He's more likely to short-circuit our defenses than save them. The room tittered and Jake's face heated, the awkwardness hitting like a misfired blaster. He was a wrench-turner, not a savior, and standing in a room full of alien elites made him feel like a rust bucket in a showroom. Lyra's hand tightened on his, her voice sharp as she stepped forward. Jake stopped Vizor's machine and saved the Heartstone. Mock him again, Tharian, and you'll answer to me. Her defense sent a warm jolt through their bond, but the tension in the room spiked, the drama crackling like a live wire. Elara raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Enough, the void's influence grows. Our scouts report Vizor's fleet massing near the Nebula Veil, a trap, no doubt. Jake, Lyra, you must lead a strike team to intercept him before he can use the shard's remnant power. Her eyes softened on Jake. But first, you must undergo the binding ceremony, a public affirmation of your bond to strengthen it against the void's corruption. Jake blinked, his throat dry. Another ceremony? What more dancing? His attempt at humor drew a chuckle from Lyra, but the noble's stares made him wince. The idea of another public spectacle, especially one tied to their intimate bond, felt like walking into a plasma storm without a shield. Lyra leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. It's intense, she whispered, her tone laced with mischief. But I'll guide you, trust me. The bond flared with a teasing pulse of desire, making his pulse race despite the looming stakes. The ceremony was set for that evening in the starlit atrium, a vast dome open to Zerathia's auroras, its floor inlaid with glowing runes. Jake was handed another outfit, skin-tight, silver-threaded robes that hugged his frame like a second skin, leaving little to the imagination. Seriously, he muttered, holding up the pants, which looked like they'd been designed for a holostar, not a mechanic. I'm gonna look like I'm auditioning for a galactic boy band. Lyra, already dressed in a flowing, translucent gown that shimmered with every movement, laughed brightly, her pointed ears twitching. You look distracting, she purred, her fingers adjusting his collar, lingering on his chest. The bond carried her amusement and a spark of heat, turning the awkward moment into something electric. Just follow my lead, Jake. The ceremony binds us deeper, but it's also a show for the court. The atrium was packed with Zerathians, their luminous eyes fixed on the central platform where Jake and Lyra stood. The runes glowed brighter as Elara began the ritual, her voice chanting in a melodic tongue that resonated through their bond. The ceremony required them to touch, hands, hearts, minds, publicly affirming their connection. Jake's palms sweated as he took Lyra's hands, her skin cool and soft, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that made the crowd fade. Feel me, she whispered through the bond, guiding his hands to her waist. The crowd watched, but the act felt intimate, her body pressing close as they moved in a ritual dance, slower and more deliberate than the feasts. Her gown shifted, revealing glimpses of her curves, and Jake's robes did little to hide his growing arousal, drawing a few stifled gasps from the nobles. He flushed, muttering under his breath, "Great, now I'm the galaxy's most embarrassed hero." Lyra's laugh echoed in his mind, her hips swaying closer, teasingly. "You're doing fine," she sent, her psychic voice warm. But the drama heightened as the runes flared, and a sudden pulse from the Heartstone shard, still in its containment field, sent a tremor through the atrium. The bond surged with a vision. Vizor, aboard a cloaked ship in the Nebula Veil, laughing as he activated a device linked to the void. The crowd gasped, sensing the disturbance, and Tharian leapt to his feet. "The human's presence weakens us, he's drawing the void here." Chaos erupted, nobles shouting, guards drawing weapons. Jake's heart pounded, the awkwardness of the ceremony crashing into the drama of accusation. "I'm not doing anything." He snapped, but doubt gnawed at him. Was the void really targeting him? Lyra spun to face Tharian, her eyes blazing. "Enough, Jake's the reason we have the shard at all." Her voice cut through the noise, but the bond carried her fear. Tharian's accusations could fracture the court's trust. Elara raised her hands, restoring order. "The ceremony continues, the bond must hold." They resumed, their movements more urgent, hands roaming with purpose. Lyra's fingers traced his chest, her lips brushing his neck in a ritual gesture that felt dangerously intimate under the court's gaze. The bond flared, their emotions intertwining, her trust, his defiance, pushing back the void's shadow. As they completed the dance, a final rune ignited, sealing their connection with a burst of light that silenced the doubters. But the drama wasn't over. A hologram flickered to life in the atrium, Vizor's scarred face projected from his ship. "You think your bond can stop me?" he sneered. "The void has chosen its vessel, and it's not me." His eyes locked onto Jake, a chilling promise. "Prepare, human. Your destiny awaits in the Nebula Veil." The hologram faded, leaving the court in stunned silence. Jake's stomach twisted, the awkwardness of being singled out as the void's target hitting hard. Lyra pulled him close, her body a shield against the stairs. "He's lying," she whispered, but the bond carried her uncertainty. Was Jake the key to stopping the void, or its gateway? As they were ushered to prepare for the mission, Jake tried to lighten the mood, nudging her. "So, any chance this Nebula Veil has a bar? I could use a drink after that." Lyra's smile was strained but warm, her hand squeezing his. "Stay close, Jake. We'll face him together." The war chamber awaited, plans forming for a strike on Vizor's fleet. But the twist of Jake's role in the void's plans hung over them, a dramatic weight that made every step feel like a plunge into the unknown. Their bond was stronger, but the Nebula Veil promised revelations that could shatter everything, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his next move would define not just their love, but the galaxy's fate. The war chamber's frenetic energy spilled into the launch bay as Jake and Lyra boarded a sleek Zerathian assault craft, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian under the auroral glow of the palace spires. The weight of Vizor's chilling words still hung over them, Jake as the void's chosen vessel, a revelation that twisted their bond with a mix of fear and defiance. Lyra's hand lingered in his, her touch a steady anchor through the psychic link that thrummed with her unwavering resolve, her violet eyes burning with love and determination. Her white hair was pulled back tightly, accentuating the delicate points of her ears, and her combat suit hugged her curves, a reminder of the fire they'd shared and the battles they'd fought together. Jake clutched the Heartstone shard, its pulse steady now, as if sensing the finality of their mission. The Nebula Veil awaited, a swirling expanse of gas and shadow where Vizor's fleet hid, and with it, the fate of Zerathia, and perhaps the galaxy. As the craft's engines roared to life, Jake felt the drama of their journey cresting toward a climax, but through their bond, he sensed Lyra's hope. This could be the end, and it could be good. The Nebula Veil was a mesmerizing chaos, its clouds of violet and crimson gas lit by flashes of distant stars, masking Vizor's fleet in a haze of deception. Lyra piloted with precision, her movements graceful yet fierce, while Jake monitored the scanners, his mechanics instincts sharp despite the cosmic stakes. "He's cloaked," she murmured, her voice steady but laced with tension. "But the shard will find him." She reached for the containment field where the shard rested, its glow sinking with the core back on Zerathia, a beacon through the fog of war. Jake leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers, the bond amplifying their shared focus. "Got a blip dead ahead," he said, pointing to a faint signal on the screen. His attempt to keep things light flickered through. "Let's hope Vizor's not throwing another surprise party." Lyra's lips twitched, a fleeting smile that eased the tension, but her eyes stayed locked on the view screen, her pointed ears twitching as she sensed something through their bond. A ripple of malice, Vizor's presence drawing near. The assault craft slipped through the nebula, dodging debris and energy flares, until Vizor's flagship emerged, a jagged monstrosity bristling with weapons, its hull pulsing with the void's dark energy. Smaller ships swarmed around it, a hive of aggression, but Lyra's piloting was unmatched, weaving through their fire with balletic grace. "We board the flagship," she said, her voice resolute. "End this now." Jake nodded, gripping his blaster, the shard's weight in his pocket a constant reminder of their mission and his unsettling role in the prophecy. They docked under heavy fire, Jake's quick thinking bypassing the flagship's security with a jury-rigged pulse from the shard. Inside, the corridors were a maze of black metal and flickering red lights, the air thick with the void's oppressive presence. Lyra led the way, her energy blade humming, while Jake covered her, his blaster downing drones that lunged from the shadows. Their bond was a lifeline, guiding their movements in perfect sync, her psychic senses alerting them to traps, his instincts finding paths through the chaos. The heart of the flagship was a cavernous chamber, dominated by a towering rift generator, the void's gateway, its core swirling with inky blackness that seemed to stare back. Vizor stood before it, his armor scarred from their last encounter, the stolen shard in his hand glowing with malevolent intent. "You're too late," he snarled, his voice echoing with unnatural depth. "The void has chosen its vessel, you're human. His soul will open the rift and chaos will reign. Jake's blood ran cold, the prophecy's weight crushing. Was he truly the key to this destruction? Lyra's hand found his, her touch grounding him through the bond. He's lying, she sensed psychically, her love a fierce counterpoint to Vizor's taunts. You're our salvation, not his. The battle erupted, a symphony of chaos and defiance. Lyra clashed with Vizor, her blade sparking against his armor, while Jake dove for the generator, his mechanics mind racing to dismantle it. Drones swarmed, their blades slicing close, but he fought back with a wrench and sheer grit, his movements fueled by Lyra's strength flowing through their bond. Vizor's shard unleashed waves of dark energy, but Lyra countered with psychic bursts, her white hair whipping as she shielded Jake. In a desperate move, Vizor lunged for Jake, aiming to force the shard into his chest. "Embrace your destiny," he roared. But Lyra intercepted, taking the blow, her cry piercing Jake's heart. Blood seeped from her side, her combat suit torn, but she held firm, her eyes blazing. "Now, Jake," she gasped, tossing him her shard. He caught it, the two shards, one from Thalor, one from Zerathia, pulsing in unison. The bond surged, their love and trust a blazing light against the void's darkness. Jake slammed both shards into the generator's core, overriding its controls with a mechanic's precision. The machine screamed, its rift collapsing in a vortex of light, pulling Vizor's shard and his essence into oblivion. The flagship shook, systems failing, as Vizor's scream faded into silence. Jake caught Lyra as she stumbled, her wound serious but not fatal. "Stay with me," he whispered, tearing a strip from his robe to bind her injury. Her lips curved, weak but warm. "Always," she murmured, their bond flooding with her love, anchoring them both. They escaped in a stolen shuttle as the flagship disintegrated, the nebulas glow a backdrop to their survival. Back on Zerathia, the palace erupted in celebration, the core stabilized, the void's threat vanquished. Queen Elara met them in the healing chambers, where Lyra's wound was treated with bioluminescent salves. "You've fulfilled the prophecy," Elara said, her eyes soft on Jake. Not as the void's vessel, but as its conqueror through love. Jake stood by Lyra's bedside, her hand in his, her white hair fanned across the pillow like a halo. The bond thrummed with peace, their connection deeper than ever. "So what now?" he asked, a grin tugging at his lips. "Back to fixing hyperdrives?" Lyra laughed, pulling him down for a gentle kiss, her lips soft and warm. "Stay with me, Jake, rule by my side. Zerathia needs its hero, and I need my mate." Her violet eyes sparkled, the bond carrying her joy. And he felt it too, a future unfolding, bright and boundless. The court embraced him, Tharian's doubts silenced, and the auroras above danced in celebration. Jake, once a mechanic from New Terra, was now a legend, his name etched in Zerathian lore. He and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the floating spires, her body pressed close, their bond a living promise. The galaxy stretched before them, full of challenges, but together they were unstoppable. As the stars shone, Jake whispered, "Guess that blind date wasn't such a bad idea." Lyra's laugh echoed, a melody that sealed their story, a tale of love, courage, and a destiny forged in the fires of the cosmos, a good ending that left the universe brighter for their union.